Hello, internet friends. I bet you're wondering why I've assembled you all here today. Well, I've prepared a challenge for you. A gauntlet, if you will. I am talking, of course, about 100%ing Pokemon games and Pokemon generations. A few months ago, I showed you how I plan my 100% playthroughs for games that I haven't played in a while and don't know everything about yet. But I realized I could make a much more comprehensive guide for the games that I have already 100%ed myself, since many of you also want to do 100% runs, and it can be overwhelming to comb through pages and pages of Bulbapedia to make sure that you know what you need to prepare for and you don't miss anything. So I have assembled a list of objectives for you to complete in the Game Boy generations, starting with Gen 1, so that you can easily 100% the games for yourselves. As always, my goal here is not to gatekeep completionism. If anything on this list is outside of what you financially or time-wise want to commit to the game, then don't do it. Just do the things you want to do. The goal is, of course, as always, to have a good time and to go back and discover content in the older Pokemon games that you may have not known about that might be satisfying to complete. But if you want to try all of it, if you want to go super hardcore, then do it and tell me about it, because I want to know how that goes, and brag about it. So I am starting with Gen 1, the beginning, of course. I know a lot of you are more interested in Gen 2 than Gen 1. However, if you want to 100% complete Gen 2, then the first objective on your list is to complete Gen 1 first. And if you're completing Gen 1, you might as well complete Gen 1. As you're about to see, there's a surprising amount of stuff to do in Gen 1. I also personally think that you'll be better able to appreciate Gen 2 if you play Gen 1 first. And also, I feel like I say this constantly, but Pokemon Stadium 1 is a really difficult and really fun game, and it's way harder than Stadium 2. And also, if you've never done a completionist run before, and this is your first time ever even considering it, Gen 1 is a good place to start, because unlike Gen 2, this will probably only take you a few months to complete. There's a lot of stuff to do, but it is kind of a smaller game, so you can actually kind of feasibly see the end in sight the entire time, which is not always true for 100% runs of Pokemon games. So when it comes to Gen 1, there are two ways to approach the game. One is you can abuse glitches, and the other is that you can try and do a glitchless run. I would say that glitches are kind of part of the authentic Gen 1 experience, because everyone back in the day was abusing glitches. If you are interested in knowing how kids played it at the time, using Missing No and the Mew trick and all of the other things that are built into the game on accident to dupe items or get different Pokemon will be an accurate representation of what the majority of players were doing back then. Glitches can save time and money, since you can cut out entire game playthroughs if you use them. But on the other hand, if you want higher difficulty, or if you want to see the developer's intended experience of Generation 1, and if you'd like to treat it as a long-term project to chip away slowly at, I recommend a glitchless run. So throughout this guide, I've made notes of variations between a glitched run and a glitchless run, where glitches could be applicable to save time or do things more efficiently. They are noted in the guide. And if you want to avoid abusing glitches, the guide also includes ways to do them legitimately, as efficiently as you can. Glitchless does take slightly more planning before you begin your run, because at the very beginning of the series, TMs are single use, and you don't get more than one of them. So planning your teams for Stadium involves planning where you're going to get each TM to get the movesets that you need. So if you're not going to be duping TMs, then you do need to know ahead of time which TMs to save so that you don't waste them on the wrong Pokemon during the run. If you're going the old hardware route, which is the route that I did because I just happened to already own all of this old hardware, you will need batteries and a soldering iron. There are tutorials for how to replace your batteries in Game Boy games. I'm not going to walk you through that process now. You will also need a set of screwdrivers that can open an N64, a Game Boy game, which I do have. I'll show you them. This is the kind of battery you will need. You can get them with tabs pre-soldered on, which makes it really easy to change the batteries, but these don't last as long as like a typical Duracell or Energizer that's 30, what are these? They're CR 2025s are these. And then this is an example of the screwdriver bit that you'll need. It's got a special head on it. There's one for the Game Boy and there's one for the N64. So the N64 you will want to modify because any Nintendo 64 can play English or Japanese games. The only thing is that if you've got a North American NTSC N64, which is what this is. Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't know if European N64s can play either. During this time period, PAL TVs were totally different. I have no idea whether or not they're compatible. They're probably not. But if you've got an North American N64, it can play Japanese games. So the way you do that is, let me open up this door. Okay, you can kind of see in there, no you can't because my finger's in the way. You can kind of see in there that there is a chunk that we sawed off with a Dremel tool. There's just a bit of plastic that keeps the shape of the cartridge different enough to not fit between American and Japanese N64 cartridges. So all you have to do is open it up using a security bit like this and then use a Dremel tool to remove that excess plastic. So add to this list of things you might need if you're doing any retro playthrough in 2024. You probably want a soldering iron to solder in batteries and fix things like that. And you also probably want a Dremel tool. Now, if you're using a Dremel tool and probably even a soldering iron in your batteries, you want to wear protective eyewear. Once I turned on our Dremel just to see if it was charged because it's a wireless one, and the entire saw blade that's at the end of it just broke in half and flew off in like different directions. That had happened to fly up at my face, that would have been very bad. So always use protection when you're using these tools. Another thing that you can do to play Japanese games on a North American N64 is you can just take the backs off of the cartridges and swap them so that they will like fit in the system, which you can also do with the same screwdriver. So you don't actually need a Dremel tool if you don't want to open up your N64 and saw off those pieces. For me, that's just the easiest because then I don't have to do that work every time of swapping the backs of the games to whatever I want to play, so that's why Dremel tool is listed as optional on here. So now we're getting to the actual gaming hardware that you will need. You will need something that can play a Game Boy Color game. Now there's a lot of options for that actually. Any Game Boy Advance except for the Micro can play a Game Boy Color game. They're all compatible with the link cables, including the Game Boy Player. You can also play it on your N64, so if you only have an N64 for some reason and no Game Boys, you can do it that way. You can also trade on the N64. You will need more than one transfer pack though. I also actually recommend trying the game in the Game Boy Tower on the N64 in Stadium because there's unique color palettes for the Gen 1 games that are only on the Super Game Boy or the Game Boy Tower in Stadium. Now let me show you what that looks like what the difference is. Okay, so this is a video by Kind of a Lot of Gaming that compares the color palettes between the Game Boy Player, which is basically a Game Boy Advance screwed onto the bottom of GameCube, and the Super Game Boy. So as you can see, there's a unique border on the Super Game Boy that's also in the Game Boy Tower, and the color palette is completely different. It's more pastel, it's kind of cuter, I think, on the Super Game Boy, more colorful, more vibrant, and each town has a unique color palette, which they don't ordinarily. So Viridian City is green, Pewter City is gray, Cerulean City is blue. I think this is a very lovely pastel blue. So the vibes are very 90s. I really enjoy how this looks, so if you want, you can get either a Super Nintendo and a Super Game Boy to play it on, or just have your N64 and play it on the Game Boy Tower. It will look the same either way. So speaking of, you can also get a CRT TV. You can find those extremely cheap on Facebook Marketplace, I have heard. People just giving them away. For the full 90s experience, the immersion, see what the games looked like on an old-fashioned television screen. And along those lines, you do need an N64, a couple of N64 controllers, and preferably 2 transfer packs so that you can easily trade between games. You think you could probably do it with one, but you might need to go glitched route at that point, or rely on the old-fashioned Game Boy link cable to trade. For the uninitiated, if you are unfamiliar, this is a transfer pack. It goes in the memory card slot of your N64 controller, just like this, and the Game Boy game goes in here. Now, some people have trouble with these. They can be because they are old technology. They can sometimes have errors or be unreliable. Mine work really well. I only occasionally have trouble with mine. If you're playing on the Game Boy Tower, I recommend putting your game in the Player 2 controller, setting it down, and using the Player 1 controller to control the game. This prevents any loss of data if you accidentally bump something. A big chunk of the content in Gen 1 is related to Stadium, so you will also need a copy of Stadium 1, and this is where a lot of the optional objectives come in. So it depends on how crazy you want to get. For me, I would be interested in doing this if I did Gen 1 again. In fact, when I was putting together this checklist, it was extremely tempting to plan another team for Gen 1 and do another playthrough because I have never done this part. But there's actually a second Gen 1 Stadium game that we never got. Actually, it's the first one. It's Stadium 0 in Japan. So when you're buying Japanese games, this is what you want to look for, is Stadium 0. This is our Stadium 1. It says 2, but it's the equivalent of English Stadium 1. And this is the equivalent of our Stadium 2. So you want to look for the one with no number on it. Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. It's a Japan-only Stadium game with only 42 Pokemon. And to play it, you need a Japanese copy, green, blue, or yellow. Now, I recommend Pokemon Blue because Pokemon Blue in Japanese is a unique experience compared to our Red and Blue. So I'm sure you've heard this 6 billion times by now if you're a Pokemon fan that has spent any amount of time on the internet. Our original Red and Blue versions on the Game Boy were based off of the Blue version that was released in Japan in terms of the graphics and bug fixes, and I think the Cerulean Cave layout. However, when the games were localized, to recreate having the 2 versions of red and green, they split Japanese Blue back into 2 games and duplicated the Pokemon locations from Japanese Green and Japanese Red, which means that Japanese Blue has completely unique Pokemon locations that are not in any of the localized games that we got. Adding on to this, that the Japanese Red and Green versions are a very unique experience as well compared to any of the Gen 1 games that we got, because they have the original graphics with the original very janky sprites, some bugs that we did not get in ours, and a different Cerulean Cave layout. Now, I also wanted to add, if you're doing a glitchless run, you actually need to get all 3 English games to complete the Pokedex. You will need red, blue, and yellow. I've planned this 100% run to be for a yellow version playthrough because yellow version is a much harder game, because in red and blue, opponent trainers cannot use TMs, so they only use the crappy movesets that Pokemon have from leveling up. Whereas in yellow, the level scaling is different, and enemy trainers have TMs, which means that their Pokemon have better movesets. If you're doing a glitched run, you can maybe get away with only having 1 game and Stadium. Here is a fully optional thing that you can add to this list. It's the Game Boy printer and thermal paper. So you can still buy thermal paper. You probably will want fresh thermal paper if you're going to do this, but there are Game Boy printer specific features in yellow version. So if you want to, there's probably not a lot of demand for a Game Boy printer. So I don't imagine that they're really expensive or hard to find. So you can get one, you can get some thermal paper and cut it down to the size that you need. So yesterday we outlined the supplies you will need to do your 100% run. The first objective on the list is to beat yellow version. So I explained yesterday that yellow version is a harder game than red and blue. It also has some exclusive content compared to red and blue. It has some unique mini games, and the special yellow Pikachu is something that you will want to transfer to Gen 2 eventually, both for the Light Ball and to use in the Gen 2 minigames on Stadium. So all of the glitches that are in Red and Blue, more or less, are in Yellow. The only difference is that you can't do the old man Missing No trick. You have to encounter Missing No a different way. This does still work. It's just that you can't do it the same way you would do it in Red and Blue. This person on Reddit has it correct. So you do the Mew glitch, which involves standing in front of a trainer who notices you and then flying away before the battle starts. Battle any trainer, and then you battle a Ditto in the wild and fight it with a Moltres that has a special stat of anywhere from 182 to 184, which you can get by giving it Carbos. And that will allow you to encounter the correct version of Missing No in Yellow to duplicate items. You can pretty much just do Yellow if you're doing a glitched run, because all the other things that you would need to do Red and Blue for, you can get via glitches using the Trainer Fly Mew glitch. Like, basically that glitch will let you do anything you want. And now moving on to the objectives for Yellow version. What you want to do before you start your 100% run is you will want to plan 3 teams at least. You can plan more if you want. I don't know how that would work. There's not a lot of resources to go around in Gen 1, so you probably want to do the minimum number of teams that you can. So 1 team will work for Poke and Prime Cup in Stadium, as well as Gym Leader Castle, and then you need 2 more for Pika Cup and Petite Cup. So that's a total of 3 teams, and you will want to raise them as you're playing the game, which means that you'll be swapping them in and out of your party the entire time once they hit their max levels for each cup. If you want to use the same Pokemon in multiple cups, then you have to do those cups when your team is ready at the levels they need to be at, and then raise them more through the game to do the other cups as you encounter them. So basically that means that you have to track which TMs you plan to use for your team, where you're going to obtain them, and at what point in the game you get them, and then make sure you don't use them on any other Pokemon. I have included links to some resources to help you plan your teams. Of course, I've referenced this multiple times in my videos. The RBY Battling Guide by Hitmonlee is a good place to start. You just need to take a look at this, read up about the mechanics in Red and Blue. This is catered more to multiplayer, so not all of this is going to be relevant to a single player game. But basically my thinking was the best Pokemon in Red, Blue, and Yellow are kind of universally good because there's just not that many good Pokemon in this gen. Basically, there are a few staples that you should include. One should be a fast normal type or a bulky normal type. So you can do Tauros, Persian, Snorlax. Then you want a psychic type with some good recovery moves. Is Starmie, Alakazam, or Slowbro. I don't know if Slowbro actually has recovery. Jinx is also a supposedly pretty good psychic type in Gen 1. I've never used Jinx in Gen 1. You want to spread status as much as possible, so you will want something like a Chansey, or an Exeggutor, or I use Venusaur for that because Venusaur is quite fast. An electric type can also spread paralysis, so that's what my Zapdos is for. And of course, because paralysis is so common, you will need a ground type to counter the electric types that you'll come up against, and that can be Rhydon or Golem. There's also a few other options, but these are just some good Pokemon to consider. I found what I think is the original thread that I got my Petite Cup team from, but this covers much more than just Petite Cup. It's a very comprehensive thread that goes over pretty much everything that you will need to know about Pokemon Stadium and how to prepare teams for it. It recommends Mewtwo. I opted not to do that because I think that's really boring. I don't think that you want to plan a playthrough where you just plan to use the legendary to sweep everything. If you want to use Mewtwo, it's valid. It's the best Pokemon in the game. Go for it. But they also don't provide a Pika Cup team. I'll show you a different guide that does. They list a speedrunning strategy that relies on Starmie instead. But here is a Petite Cup team. This is the exact Petite Cup team that I used. This is what they used for Poke Cup as well. So if you want, you can use this team and then level it up for Prime and Gym Leader Castle as well. It's a pretty classic very good Gen 1 team, very similar to the team that I used. So how you're going to plan this is going to vary depending on what team you build, how creative you want to be. You can go with slightly weaker Gen 1 Pokemon and just stack more of them on your team to compensate, or you can go with the most overpowered and just rely on one or two. Feraligatr wrote this. This is the guide that my Pikachu team came from. I found it. This is a very good guide for strategy for Pikachu as well. You can be more creative in your team building than this. There are some trade backs that make certain Pokemon eligible for Pikachu that would not otherwise be usable. So it's your call. I've included this all for further reading so that you can totally know what you're getting into before you start building your teams, because you do need to plan everything before you start, unfortunately. And I would say that this is also true when you're doing glitch. If you are not doing glitched, like, you would have to do more planning. If you're doing glitched, you would just have to sort of plan how you plan to get each Pokemon, and then not to use TMs until you can start duplicating them. Then you can go nuts. But you can only start duplicating them at the point in the game when you have a Moltres in yellow version, unless you also want to play red and blue. This is an ancient guide from 2003 by The Scythe. I used to read this guide as a child. This has a list of every trainer in the game and which Pokemon they will produce using the trainer fly glitch to battle them. Once you return to the original route where you fled from the trainer, depending on the special stat of the last Pokemon you fought, different Pokemon will appear. It can be used to obtain more than just Mew. So you can be creative with trainer fly. I've done it by using teleport on Abra. I think I've done it with an escape rope with varying success. There's a few things to trial and error sometimes if you're in an area with a lot of wild encounters. Sometimes you can end up locking the game up. During my 100% run, I used this glitch to encounter Missing No earlier. Also, to get a Mr. Mime early in the game that I could give my own nickname to. So this is applicable to red and blue only. Because what the trainers have is completely different in yellow version, you're gonna get different results by battling some trainers in the game than what's on this list. I don't know if there's an equivalent list for yellow version. I might find that and put that in the guide later. Now, another fun thing that you can do as you're starting your game before you've done anything else, you can choose what colors you want your Pokemon to appear as once you get to Stadium. As I've explained in past videos, there is a system that assigns a custom hue, like a custom color, to the model of your Pokemon in Stadium, depending on what nickname you gave them, and a couple other factors like your name and your trainer ID. Now, since that last video, I'm very excited to show this to you. Blue Moon Falls is a website that focuses on in-depth analysis, I suppose, and information about the Game Boy generation games. They have created this preview tool. So you would want to start your game, create a name, and get your trainer ID. And then before you start catching your Pokemon, input that here, and then try different nicknames to get the hue that you want on the species of Pokemon that you want. What you could even do, maybe, is kind of reverse engineer this and try different trainer ID, nickname, and trainer name combos to get the Pokemon that you want at the color you want, with the nickname that you want, with the trainer ID. As far as I know, you can't RNG manipulate your trainer ID to be anything. There's a couple that speedrunners have found that you are able to RNG manipulate to get, or you can do arbitrary code execution to change your trainer ID after the fact to be whatever you want. So if you're doing a glitched run, the options are endless. Otherwise, I would just put in what your trainer ID and name is, and then try different nicknames till you get the hue that you want. Pheonin, of course, has the old gallery of all the pictures of different Pokemon hues in Stadium, so you can look through this and decide on a hue that you want to go for from what's on here. It makes it very convenient, so you can actually kind of make an aesthetic team in Gen 1. I don't know how it'll do in Stadium if you're picking Pokemon based on their hues more than their stats, but you can kind of do an aesthetic run. Have fun playing with this. This is all linked in the guide. You can make a spreadsheet to keep track of your teams like I did in my past video. However you want to do it, whatever helps you stay organized. You can do stat experience training in Gen 1. So if you want to do that, really, I would only plan to do that for the teams that you're raising to level 100, because I don't know how you would... I don't think it's possible, unless you're extremely creative, to get max stat experience at the lower levels for the other Stadium Cups. So what stat experience is, if you are unfamiliar, it's the Gen 1 equivalent of EV training. So this guide here from Azura Heights explains how it is done. This is a lot of reading, but essentially what you're going to be doing is just using vitamins till you can't anymore, running the Elite Four, the entire Elite Four with your Pokemon, and then after each run, depositing it into the PC, and then withdrawing it and checking if its stats have gone up. If its stats have gone up, then you just keep doing that until they stop doing it. There's no caps on stats in Gen 1, so there's nothing really to plan. You just keep going until the numbers stop going up and you're done. It's a little tedious, so if you want to do this, I would maybe do round 1 in Stadium first and unlock the Doduo Game Boy, because if you're unfamiliar, the Doduo and Dodrio Game Boys in the Stadium are... So it's part of the Game Boy Tower. It's basically a built-in speed-up function, so that back in the day, even before emulators, you could play the game at high speeds. So the Doduo Game Boy Tower allows the game to be played at twice speed, while the Dodrio Game Boy Tower allows the games to be played at 3 times speed. That's in Gen 1. In Gen 2, the Dodrio Game Boy apparently can speed up the Gen 1 games to 4 times speed. So if you already have the Dodrio in Stadium 2, that is also an option. In Western Pokemon Stadium, the Doduo Game Boy Tower is unlocked by completing the Poke Cup or the Prime Cup, while the Dodrio Game Boy Tower is unlocked by completing both cups. I think that means that you can unlock everything in round 1, so that you can stat experience train anything you want for round 2. Now, I will say that stat experience training is completely unnecessary. I didn't do it, and I still managed to beat Stadium. This is only for the people who really enjoy knowing that their Pokemon are as maxed out as they can be. That's the only people I would recommend this activity for, is if you want to do it for your own sake because you enjoy it. Because it is absolutely overkill. All you really need to do, or certainly all I did to prepare, was I just used vitamins till I couldn't anymore. And that was enough. You might have an easier time than I did if you stat experience train. I'm not saying that it won't help, but it's not necessary to beat the game. DV resetting is also an option. However, the main reason you would probably want to do this is to try and get shiny Pokemon to transfer to Gen 2, or Pokemon of a specific gender. Like, there are some people who want to always control the genders of their Pokemon, or always want to have all shiny Pokemon. Well, this is for those people. This is a guide for shiny hunting within Gen 1. This is only for when you transfer them up to Gen 2. They obviously will not appear as shiny Pokemon within Gen 1. This is a great guide. It shows you which Pokemon that you can manipulate to have specific IVs. I will say that probably the reason that you can only do this on these encounter types is speedrunners have figured out that not every DV set is actually possible to obtain as a wild encounter. So in fact, if you wanted perfect DVs, you would have to also do one of these types of Pokemon. Here is a list of all of the possible spreads that you can find, courtesy of Daily Leaf on Pastebin, that exist in Gen 1 in the wild. So you could probably Control F and figure out that you cannot find perfect wild Pokemon. So don't drive yourself crazy looking for them in the wild. And it's also, I will reiterate, completely unnecessary to beat Stadium 1 and 2. You do not need to have perfect DVs. So that's what this note in this guide means. It's only referring to wild encounters. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could try and get a gift Pokemon to have perfect DVs. I will update the wording on this to clarify that. Now, watch Stand By Me. What this is referring to is at the start of the game in Red and Blue, at the very beginning, when you talk to the television, it says, "There's a movie on TV. 4 boys are walking on railroad tracks. I better go too." It's referring to the film Stand By Me. Now, I actually have never seen Stand By Me. And it occurred to me that this is one of the very few direct references to other media that exists in Pokemon. It's drawing kind of a thematic parallel to this film. So I have decided to include it as mandatory viewing as part of a Gen 1 100% run. However, this was not the case in every territory, so if you're French, you have to watch Dragon Ball. I don't know why they've changed the references in the French version specifically so frequently. That's interesting. Suggest that you all have a watch party and all watch Stand By Me. So now, moving on to catching all of the Pokemon in each area as you go. This will help you complete the Pokedex as you go, but don't worry about like evolving all of them unless you really want to do a Professor Oak challenge, but it will be easier to do this again after you have the Doduo or Dodrio Game Boy to level things up. Or, of course, if you're doing glitch, just use rare candies. But of course, one of the goals of a 100% Gen 1 run is to complete the Pokedex, so you'll want to do that as you go. Look for all of them. Likewise, you will want to find all of the hidden items. You don't get to hold that many items in Gen 1. Your item bag is quite small. You will not get to keep all of the items if you pick up every single one. So please don't hesitate to use the items in Gen 1. What you can do is, if it's a non-consumable, you can put it in your PC and then use it later. You get slightly more storage by taking advantage of the PC storage system. And I definitely recommend putting TMs in there, because if you're going to be holding on to a bunch of TMs, you're going to run out of bag space pretty fast. But the fun thing about Kanto's design is that throughout the whole game, as you're moving through, you see items that you can't get, like off to the side of routes or behind cuttable trees. You want to go back to previous areas as you unlock different HM moves to re-explore and be rewarded for doing so. So I make it a rule when I do a 100% run for myself that whenever I unlock a new HM move that allows me access to different places on the map, I just do another sweep back through to find any items that I can now access. And it can be fun to re-explore areas, especially in Johto, but in Kanto, it's also fun. Of course, you want to talk to all the NPCs, read all the signposts, consume all of the dialogue, all of the text in the game, read all of it. This also means no skipping trainers. You will have to do every battle, including the optional rival battle on Route 22. So in Gen 1, that rival will no longer be there once you've gotten the Boulder badge. So you can fight him anytime until you've gotten Brock's badge. So if you're using Pikachu in your party, it will probably happen without any deliberate effort. The Pikachu is maxed out friendship-wise, but if you're not planning on using Pikachu in your party, you may have to do some extra work to make Pikachu like you. There are glitches to help you do this, if you would prefer to do it that way. In Stadium, one of your objectives will be to get the Surfing Pikachu, which I will explain how that is obtained in a moment. So once you do, you will have to send it back to Yellow version in order to do the Surfing Pikachu minigame in the beach house south of Fuchsia City. There isn't really an end goal for doing this, except that your high scores are something you can print out with the Game Boy printer. Just play it until you don't feel like it anymore, but do experience it. Now, one thing that you'll want to do to prepare for Gen 2 as you're playing Gen 1 is you're going to want to collect all of the unique trainer IDs that are in the game. This is the list that's relevant to Yellow version. So you'll want to get each one of these. Their trainer IDs will be randomized. They should, I think, all have a unique trainer ID each time you trade for them. So you will want to have all of these so that when you get to the Lotto in Gen 2 that you can do daily, you have more trainer IDs to run it with, and better chances, better odds. Now, what's fun about Gen 1 is that it is a rather non-linear game, and it can be made even more non-linear. So there's sequence breaks that you can do in the Gen 1 games. So here are all the different ways you can route your playthrough if you want to be really creative and do the badges in a strange order. If you want, I've never done like an out of order playthrough. Not really, so I think that this would be fun for me to try if I went back to Gen 1. But by trading from Gen 2 using Stadium 2, you can transfer in a drink to give to the guards early so that you can get into Saffron anytime you want, basically after reaching Cerulean City, I think is the first time you get access to it. You can also skip the cuttable tree south of Cerulean City by trading in a Pokemon that knows cut and getting the Cascade badge, which means that you actually can completely skip the S.S.Anne altogether. Similarly, you can, with a Pokemon that knows cut and the badge, bypass the St. Anne and then come back once you have a Pokemon that knows surf to see the fabled truck legitimately. However, because it is a 100% run, I will say that any content you skip, you do actually have to go back and eventually complete. Otherwise, it's not 100%. I'm putting my foot down if you've skipped large chunks of the game. And also, the rule to find all items and battle all trainers means that you necessarily will have to return to these areas at some point, but you can do them in whatever order you want, only with the limits of your own imagination. So you could come up with a backstory for your trainer that's totally different than the basic protagonists of the Kanto games. I think that's pretty fun. So that's all the mandatory things I would say that go into 100% completing Yellow version. However, there are some novelties that you can do just to say you've done them. Some kind of unique, quirky things that can only be done in the original Gen 1 games, so you might as well try them. So first, within Pokemon Mansion, it is possible, and this is a video demonstrating this by Uber Dragon, but it is possible to trap yourself in this room, and the only way to fix it is to get knocked out by a wild Pokemon. Apparently, this first happened on Twitch Plays Pokemon, but they managed to get themselves trapped here and had to knock themselves out. But all you have to do is wait for this burglar to block your path and then battle them. And then once you defeat them, they stop wandering around and you're stuck there. And then you just have like 2 spaces to try and encounter enough Pokemon to knock yourself out. So that's something you can try. There's no real point to it. Just see if you can do it. You can also try any other number of visual glitches or minor, major glitches, whatever you want to do, just for the novelty. I have made comprehensive videos many, many years ago of all the glitches that I know of in the Gen 1 games, and there's probably been more discovered since then. So you could try for an all glitched run. I know I've seen people do that on YouTube. Or just try any of the ones that pique your curiosity. Completely due to an oversight, you can catch Pokemon in Lorelei's Elite Four room. Just for fun, try and catch some and keep them as a trophy. You could even try and catch a shiny Pokemon in Lorelei's Elite Four room since they're encountered by fishing. That would be funny. That's also a novelty that I have put on my list as an optional thing you can do. I was as thorough as I could possibly be in thinking of things that you can do. Red and blue are probably completely optional if you want to skip them for a glitched run. However, they do have a unique Cerulean Cave layout from Yellow version. Basically, the entire campaign is different because all the trainer Pokemon are different, so if you want to, you can still play Red and Blue. You can even play them on extra speed if you play through Yellow first and then get your parties ready for Stadium within Yellow. So on the subject of Stadium, there is a Round 1 and a Round 2 in Stadium. When you're planning your playthrough, you can either plan to use rentals entirely for Round 1, or you can register your teams in Round 1 as you're going, and then use the same teams for Round 1 and Round 2, despite the fact that you will be leveling up some of the same Pokemon past the level caps for some of those cups, if that makes any sense to you. Basically, Pokecups level cap is 50 to 55, and you will be using the same Pokemon for a level 100 cup. Because there's Round 1 and Round 2, you will have to do each cup more than once. What you'll want to do is register the team to the cartridge to use the same team in both Round 1 and Round 2. That way you can level them up and then they will still be saved at usable levels in your Stadium Cups. Now, the other option is to do all of Round 1 with rentals so that you can use the Doduo and Dodrio Game Boys to prepare your Pokemon for the Round 2 Cups, which includes leveling them to level 100 for Prime Cup. Now, technically any level Pokemon is allowed in Prime Cup, but all the opponent Pokemon are going to be really high level, like up to level 100, so I recommend just having level 100 Pokemon for it. I think you can beat it without, but that sounds really hard. So Red and Blue are required mostly to get the Pokemon that you're missing for the Pokedex. From Blue, you need Magmar in Pokemon Mansion and Meowth on routes 5 through 8. In Red, you need Electabuzz in the Power Plant and Ekans on Route 4. Ekans is in a lot of places. I've just listed them all here for you. Red, and Blue, you need the extra Eevee that you get from Celadon Mansion because you can't breed Pokemon in Gen 1, so you have no other way to get the evolutions that you're missing without playing through the game again, and without glitches. But you can get a prize Eevee from Stadium. From beating Gym Leader Castle, you can get some of these prize Pokemon, which will cut down on some of the things that you will need from other games. I think you can get them in round 1 or round 2. The only difference is when you transfer these Pokemon up to Gold and Silver, they will be holding a box that contains a trophy that you can put in your room, which is extremely cool. In round 1, they're holding the box that contains a silver trophy, and in round 2, they're holding the box that contains the gold trophy. All you have to do is defeat the Elite Four in the rival to get one of these. So you don't have to do the entire castle multiple times if you want to get more prizes. Unfortunately, these are random, so you can't control which prize you get each time. This is another way to get Eevee. Now, the other thing that you can't do in Yellow version is you cannot evolve the Pikachu that you get at the start, and unfortunately, you also can't catch any other Pikachu. So you will need to catch a Pikachu in Viridian Forest and trade it in. You also will need a Weedle from either version, a Coughing, Jinx from an in-game trade, and whichever fossil Pokemon you didn't pick up in Mount Moon, as well as whichever fighting Pokemon you didn't get from the dojo, Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan. Or of course, you can get them as prizes from Gym Leader Castle, as I just explained. Now, there are also unique in-game trades in Red and Blue. So these are more chances that you have to get unique trainer IDs for the Lotto in Gen 2. So you miss out on these if you do play fewer Gen 1 games. If you're doing it glitched and you skip Red and Blue, you won't be getting these, but if you are playing all 3, they are different from the Yellow version in-game trades. So something I sort of skipped over, in Yellow version, the encounter rate for Tauros is higher than it is in Red and Blue, which is worth mentioning because in my experience completing the Gen 1 Pokedex when I was in high school, Tauros was the hardest Pokemon to catch in Red and Blue. So you can catch one in Yellow version to make that easier for you. But I have also added it as an optional objective and a bonus challenge just to make things a little harder. If you want to, you can also catch a Tauros in Red and Blue, even if you end up getting the easier to catch one in Yellow. Now there's one additional novelty that you can do in Celadon Hotel in Red and Blue that is not in Yellow, and that's that there is a invisible PC in the corner of the hotel room that you can use by just walking up to the corner and pressing A on thin air. Once you have all of your Pokemon for Pokemon Stadium, I have listed this as number 3 in the objectives. Of course, there is round 1, Petite, Pika, Poke, Prime, and Gym Leader Castle, and Mewtwo. Mewtwo is the final boss that appears once you beat everything else. It rolls over to round 2, so you beat them all again. There are a couple unique Pokemon that you can get from Stadium. So the first is a Surfing Pikachu. Now, to get the Surfing Pikachu, I'm going to read you the requirements. The Pikachu must be on a 6-member team that you use to beat the Round 2 Prime Cup at Master Ball level. It does not have to be from Yellow. Red and Blue Pikachus are fine. All of the Pokemon on your team must be chosen directly from your Game Boy cartridge. No registered teams and no rentals. They can be in your party or at any box in Bill's PC. If you lose, you can re-enter, and you can use regular continues, but you cannot save the game. So there's options to like save and quit, so you can't do that. It all has to be in one sitting. Pikachu does not have to be used in every battle and does not actually have to take part in any battle, but in the last battle, it has to be selected on your 3-member team. So basically, you are going to do the final battle in Prime Cup Round 2 with 2 usable Pokemon and 1 Pikachu. I kept my Pikachu at level 30 during this fight because I wanted to use the Surfing Pikachu in Petite Cup after I unlocked it. Pikachu does not have to be at level 100, but it will be basically a handicap for you. Once the champion has been decided and it's not the CPU, your Pikachu will automatically learn Surf if it knows less than 4 attacks. If it already knows 4 attacks, you can select one which it will forget in hyper-cute fashion to make room for Surf, or you can abandon learning the move if you're a psycho. The other unique Pokemon that you can get from Stadium is this Amnesia Psyduck. Now, to get this Psyduck, you have to register all 151 Pokemon in the Hall of Fame in Stadium. But essentially, the way that you cheese this is you use Mewtwo and Tauros to register Pokemon in the Hall of Fame in Stadium. You just have to beat Gym Leader Castle Round 1 Elite Four. So you can do that over and over and over again with different Pokemon in your party and register them in the Hall of Fame that way. It is a very time-consuming process because this you can't speed up. But this is actually not something I have ever done, so it's something that I want to go back and do because I missed this and my Hall of Fame is not complete. So, you know what occurred to me? Actually, I think you don't have to have a living dex. You can make that part of the challenge if you want, but I think you can register rentals in the Hall of Fame, which makes this much easier. You can have a party made up of a Mewtwo and a Tauros that you raised yourself, and then just put rentals in the remaining 4 slots until you have them all. And it is at this point, once you have done everything in all of the games, and you've finished Stadium and you have access to all the glitches or Dodrio Game Boys, that you would complete the Pokedex and get all of the Pokemon by evolving them all. So Mew is the mythical in Gen 1. It could be considered fully optional because it cannot be obtained legitimately. However, there are a couple options for a as close to authentic Mew as possible. The first is this program by Gil Hersosa. Sorry if I said your name wrong. They wrote a program in Python that recreates the Mew distribution software. So basically, you would dump your save file. Yeah, you need Python 3.6 plus for this. So this is probably not going to be accessible to everyone, but if you have Python, this is an option. This is a recreation of the special machine, also known as the Mew machine, which was used to distribute event Pokemon in Generation 1, starting with the Nintendo Space World 97 Mew distribution. It was mainly used to distribute Mew, but also other events like Surfing Pikachu. What is the Yoshira Mew? The Mew generated by this script is a nearly identical copy from a legit Yoshira Mew that was distributed firstly at the Pokemon League Nintendo Training Tour in '99 in October 1999. The Yoshira Mew was distributed in 2 Mew machines, and the differences between the two were the OT names they used. Basically, Yoshi R-A and Yoshi R-B, respectively. The IVs of the Yoshira Mew, 5 HP, 10 attack, 1 defense, 12 speed, and 5 special. The script uses a Yoshira Mew distributed on Toys R Us R stores from October 8th, 1999 to December 12th, 1999 as a base to generate a new Yoshira Mew with a random trainer ID. To answer the question of whether or not this counts as a legit Mew, the generated Mew is a nearly identical copy from a legit Yoshira Mew, so it's a legit Mew with a random trainer ID. Since it is not an official Nintendo distribution, it is not fully legit, but it's as close as it gets since it's a copy from a legit one. At the end, it's up to you to decide if it's legit or not. I personally consider it 95% legit. The only thing that makes it not fully legit is that it didn't come out of a Mew machine. So, some caveats to this. You will not be able to transfer this Mew up through Pokemon Home if you put it on a virtual console copy, and no one has tested it in yellow. So this is one option for getting a legit Mew. It's very cool that someone went to the trouble of making this. This is probably more legit than any Mew I have ever gotten in Gen 1. Very cool. Another option is there are archives of Pokemon in the Project Pokemon forums from legitimate events and distributions in Gen 1. This is Yoshi R.A. Mew that the Mew machine uses and distributes. And it's interesting reading these because each of these archived events has kind of a backstory on how they were preserved. And it gets really interesting. Down here is the classic Link Mew from 1999 and 2000. And it says that basically it was only able to be obtained with the help of a bunch of different people. This is all very interesting to read. And I recommend doing a deep dive on this. I'm sure somebody's already made a YouTube video about it all, but these are also options. So basically you download this file and I believe you inject it with PKHex. I believe it's that kind of a file, or it's save data that you burn and then trade over. I'm not entirely sure. I've never done this in Gen 1. Or you can, of course, do the Mew glitch to obtain Mew. That's how I got my Mew. because I didn't know about all these cool preservation things that people have been doing when I did this in 2016. So once you have completed everything there is to do in the English copies of the games, you are going to take on Japanese Blue version. As I explained before, it has unique Pokemon locations, and you're going to want to play it to build 2 new teams for the 2 different modes that are in Stadium 0. You don't need to know Japanese to play Pokemon in Japanese. If you've played it in English, which you will have by this point in this whole 100% gauntlet, you will basically know where everything is supposed to be. You can also always look up stuff on Bulbapedia because they're very useful and they always have the Japanese names of things. So if you don't know what any item is or you don't know what any move is, you can always look up like different moves and see if it matches the Japanese name for it. And you can also kind of like keep notes about which items are in which slot in your bag or which moves are in which slot in your moveset to sort of help yourself out. Animations will help you figure it out too, but you know, a lot of people were playing these games before anyone knew how to read. I was playing these games before I knew how to read. You can probably have a good time with the game without being able to read anything. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you cannot trade between Japanese and English games in Gen 1. The character sets are totally different, and because they're not in memory, it'll just totally destroy your save data, I believe. So don't even try it. This is not going to help you in Gen 2 for that reason, if you're playing Gen 2 in English or any language other than Japanese. I think you probably will only need to play through 1 Japanese game in order to get everything out of the experience, or you could go nuts and do all of the 100% completion tasks again in Japanese. However hardcore you want to be with that, keep in mind you won't have the Dodrio Game Boy until you do stadium stuff in Japanese, but that might help through repeated playthroughs if you want to just see what the other games are like. So for planning your teams for Stadium 0, there are 2 modes. There's a level 30 tournament and there's a level 50 to 55 tournament. Level 30 is flat level 30, and 50 to 55 has unique rules. The total levels of the 3 Pokemon selected cannot exceed 155. So you can have any variation of 50 to 55. However, the totals of the Pokemon that you use together can't exceed 155. Both of these tournaments, the level 30 and the 55, are based on official Pokemon tournaments in Japan, which I think is kind of cool. So this is the Nintendo Cup 98, and then Nintendo Cup 97. But one thing to keep in mind when you're putting teams together is that there are only 42 Pokemon available. They were originally going to be put on a 64DD disc, but that was delayed, and so it never came out, and eventually they just made Stadium 1 as we know it, which is their Stadium 2. So the only things really worth pointing out in terms of usable Pokemon is Rhydon is not in here, so you can't use Rhydon and you can't use Slowbro. You can use Lapras, Starmie, Gyarados, and Golem. And of course Mewtwo is completely excluded, which means that this is probably technically the hardest Pokemon game because it's Gen 1 battling and you can't use Mewtwo. So officially probably the hardest Pokemon game, which means that this is the most hardcore challenge in Gen 1. So everyone needs to do it. Anyone who wants a hard Pokemon game should try this. I've never done it. I want to do it. There's no continues as well. I think it's a shorter game, which might account for the fact that there's no continues. Very difficult game. If you clear level 30 tournament with a Pikachu, you can teach it Surf. That's how you got the Surfing Pikachu in Japan. So if you want another Surfing Pikachu in Japanese, you can do that again. So I've included resources to everything that I've been showing you and looking at so that you can do further reading, reference anything that I've mentioned in this video without having to rewatch the whole video. It's all here. I believe that in full, this shouldn't take you more than like 3 to 6 months, you know, depending on how hardcore you get with it and how glitchless you want to get. I think if you're abusing glitches, you could probably do it much faster. One of the things that I like to do when I'm doing these 100% runs is I like to fully immerse myself in the era that the game was released in. So here's a few additional things that you can do just for the vibes while you're 100%ing Gen 1, like as side activities or maybe to keep you entertained While you're grinding, you can play Pokemon Snap, Puzzle League, Hey You Pikachu, Pinball, and the TCG Game Boy game. Those are all the Gen 1 spin-offs. You can, as I mentioned, beat all of the Gen 1 Pokemon Stadium Cups on NSO with rentals, with save states. You can get a Pocket Pikachu up to 1 million steps. These are probably not very expensive secondhand because I can't imagine they're super high demand. And this is one of the original challenges of Gen 1 was to beat this thing by getting 1 million steps on it. And when you get 1 million steps on it, something unique happens. And I wanted to put this in my pedometers video, but it wasn't at 1 million steps then, but it is now. So I can show you now what that event is. But stay tuned, I'll show you after all of this. Enjoy other nostalgic 90s things for you. Now, this is really an exercise for your inner child. Do what kid you would have wanted to do while you were playing Pokemon on the Game Boy, or if you are a little tiny baby that was born after the 90s and you do not have nostalgia for it, consider it an anthropological exercise in what it was like to grow up back then. Just imagine being in the 90s, like as a historical time period for you. Again, the CRT is optional, but it's recommended for full immersion. You could draw your team to commemorate the playthrough, which I like to do, or if you don't like to do art, you can commission someone else to do it. Lots of artists to pick from all over social media that would love a commission, I'm sure. And one of my personal favorite things is taking a Game Boy out into nature, like going and settling down at a park somewhere to play the games outdoors, feel the breeze, the fresh air, see the green, hear the birds, think about Satoshi Tajiri in his forest catching bugs, go back to that mindset. Today I wanted to attempt to plan out the teams that I would need to do a new 100% Gen 1 playthrough based on my own guide. We will start with our main Poke Cup team. We will start by looking at this guide by Magic X Game and look at their Poke Cup. So they went with Starmie, Tauros, Rhydon, Chansey, Zapdos, and Exeggutor. We are going to make some substitutions because I have already used almost all of these Pokemon in a previous playthrough. We also are going to be trying to account for the number of TMs that I will need and try to keep the moves to a max of 3 for any particular move or TM if it's not a TM that you can get more than one of. So I have open the old-fashioned team planner, and I believe I would like to start with Exeggutor because I know that I'm going to need an Exeggutor. Now they have one on their team. I'm going to just copy this moveset. So Pokemon 1 is Exeggutor. We'll decide the nickname in a moment. You can get an Execute in the Safari Zone, I believe. Next, I also know that I want to use Chansey because I did not use Chansey in my last playthrough. So we will put Chansey on this team. And Chansey is going to be also at level 50. Once again, will be obtained in the Safari Zone. Now, I have already used Zapdos, so I'm going to substitute Jolteon for Zapdos. This is a little risky. Zapdos' big advantage is that it cannot be hit by Earthquake because it's a flying type. Jolteon is vulnerable to Earthquake. But if we're literally just picking like the next best electric type to go with, I believe Jolteon is the next best. It's not the fastest, but it has other advantages. So the reason that an electric type is so important is reiterating, speed is the most important mechanic in Gen 1. Speed controls critical hits. If you have high speed, you get a lot of crits. You're going to do a lot more damage. As a result, speed control is very important, which is why Thunder Wave is so omnipresent. You need an electric type for Thunder Wave. We actually already have Chansey, but they actually have an electric type and Chansey on their team in the guide. So we're just going to assume it's a good idea to have one. Now, speed is really important, but it's not the only important stat. Jolteon has low attack and defenses, but it has high special. Its special's only a little bit lower than Zapdos, and it's actually faster than Zapdos. So it's a good alternative to Zapdos since I'm trying to use different Pokemon. Electrode is very fast, but it doesn't have as high special, and I just don't really want to use it. So their Zapdos has Thunderbolt, Drill Peck, Thunder Wave, and Substitute. Let's take a look at what it can learn. We could do Double Kick as its other coverage move instead of Drill Peck because it doesn't learn that many moves. If I recall correctly, in Gen 2, the Jolteon moveset included Hidden Power Grass for coverage, so yeah, it really doesn't get that much. In Gen 1, it gets even less. Substitute instead of Rest. Substitute is extremely important in Stadium. You want to avoid getting status, and you want to play very defensively. If I remember right, Substitute really came in clutch for me. Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, Double Kick, and Substitute. That's also level 50. So that's half our team done. Now I'm trying really hard to break the temptation of reusing Pokemon that I already used on my previous team because I want this to be distinct as a playthrough. I am also tempted to try using some weaker Pokemon, but that could be risky. I don't think for Pokecup it'll be a problem, but I know that it will be a problem for Prime Cup. So our Psychic type is Exeggutor on this team. We don't have Alakazam. I'm not going to go for Alakazam. I think I would like to take a chance and use Vaporeon. A little out of the box. Let's take a look at Vaporeon's learn set. Now Vaporeon is not that good in Gen 1. Lower speed, more HP and special, which makes it very hard to hit because special attack and defense are the same stat in Gen 1, so it has very high special defense. I am going to take a look at what the Vaporeon in Prime Cup uses for its moveset, because I know that there is one. Master Ball round 2, show me the Vaporeon. There it is, Judo Battle Boy. So this is a Focus Energy team. They gave it Hyper Beam. Then there's also the Rocket that has Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Acid Armor, and Body Slam. We could do that. I believe also in Stadium specifically, compared to the Gen 1 games, Haze actually functions correctly, which it does not do in the base game. So we could give it Haze. So let's try it here. Blizzard, Haze, and Body Slam for the paralysis chance. We could do Body Slam or we could do Acid Armor. Acid Armor would make it really bulky. But the idea is, like, it's 3v3, and it's a very fast game, so it can also learn Reflect. Okay, so Reflect doubles the defense, and Acid Armor raises the defense by 2. Unfortunately, I don't know in the weeds enough about the battle system in Gen 1 to know which one is functionally better. Double defense would be pretty good. It would put its defense higher. Let's do Reflect as the 4th move, and that will be... So it's sort of taking the place of Starmie on this team, which I kind of worry about because Starmie is a much faster, harder hitting Pokemon than this. So we'll probably want to give our level 55 to a different Pokemon. Because taking a look at the distribution of levels, they only have 2 level 55s on this team. They're the 2 hardest hitting Pokemon and the rest are level 50. I'm going to give Vaporeon a level 50 and we'll save our 55s for more offensive Pokemon. We'll have to trade that in if I'm using 2 evolutions. So that is something also to keep in mind. I'm going to have to supply it to myself from a different Gen 1 game if I want to use Jolteon and Vaporeon together. I would like to use Dragonite. Was Dragonite on their team? No, it was not. Its attack is very high, but it's not very fast. But Wrap is the main reason you would want to use it. The battling is a little different in Pokemon Stadium from the base RVY, and it's good to know the differences. So Wrap does not work the same in Stadium as it does in the main games. It says Partial Trapping, Bind, Clamp, Fire Spin, and Wrap were reworked. In the event either Pokemon switches out, the turn instantly ends unless the other Pokemon is also switching, meaning that while pivoting with partial trapping still exists, it works on both ends. This makes it somewhat difficult to trap Pokemon without a speed boost with Pokemon like Dragonite, although partial trapping moves are also harder to PP stall due to the trapper not being forced to use them again. So I think that's maybe why none of these Dragonites on here run Wrap. Let's see. Horn Drill, Thunder Wave, Bubble Beam. This is only 3 attacks. Let me make sure that I know where you get Dratini. Okay, in yellow, you can only get Dratini in the Safari Zone. So in Stadium, using Explosion costs you a continue because you get perfect continues by not having any Pokemon faint. during the match. So that's something to keep in mind. Oh, you can actually get Hydro Pump on Dragonite if we do trade back. So that could be fun. So instead, how does it get Hydro Pump in Gen 2? Oh, it was a Pokemon distribution. I see. That makes it less available. But I believe it can get Extreme Speed by a trade back, no? No, I can't. Is Extreme Speed not in Gen 1? Well then, I will be bold and say actually that I will inject, but can I nickname it then? I don't think I can. All right, we're not gonna have Hydro Pump. That's just, it's unfortunate, but we're not gonna actually do that. We'll just do Bubble Beam because I want to nickname it to get a specific color. So, okay, so moving on, we have most of our team now. And I have to decide who I want to be the last member. Our ground type options are pretty slim, pretty much just Golem. Should we do Golem? Should we go with Dugtrio? Let's do Dugtrio. It's weird, but... So Jolteon is going to be our level 55. And Dugtrio will be our level 50. So we're going to do Rock Slide. And I guess Substitute. So these are our first 6 Pokemon here. That's our first team. All figured out. Or should we do Petite Cup next? We'll do Petite Cup next. I planned to use the Surfing Pikachu last time. We could plan to use the Amnesia Psyduck for this one. That would be crazy. So we would have to do, once again, Petite Cup last. I think it would be fun to use the trade back Bulbasaur as well. So its trade back move is Sleep Powder and Razor Leaf. Sleep Powder early is a trade back move, because it normally wouldn't get Sleep Powder until 41. Whereas in Generation 2, I suppose it can be bred with Sleep Powder or learn it at level 15. So we'll breed this one in Gen 2 or breed or level up in Gen 2. I think we'll just make sure to put Ghastly on here. It is one of the Pokemon that I used last time, but Petite Cup can be very hard. And I don't care as much about reusing Pokemon for this one. Psychic, Thunderbolt, Mega Drain, or Explosion. Pokemon Tower. So far, let me clear all this. Amnesia Psyduck, trade back Bulbasaur, Ghastly, some good round guys. Voltorb is a good option. It may not be eligible, actually. Here we go. Cerebee's got me with a list of eligible Pokemon. It's not very many. I think I didn't use Sandshrew last time, so we'll put Sandshrew on there. It would be so stupid to use an Earthquake TM on Sandshrew. Can we breed it? We could have a Rock Slide Earthquake Sandshrew. That's what we'll do. I believe Double Edge is crazy in Petite Cup. Oh, they do Slash and Sand Attack. We'll do that too. For Bulbasaur's other moves, we will do Leech Seed and Toxic. A Toxic Seeder. Very Gen 1. And then Surf, Ice Beam, and Rest for the Amnesia Psyduck. Okay, so here Voltorb is in this cup. So our last two could be Voltorb, and I might regret this team, but we're going with Eevee as our last. I may have to make modifications. I actually don't know if this team is going to work. Oh, the cap is level 30. I just realized, so some of these have to be level 25 actually. Psyduck is going to be level 30. Bulbasaur is going to be level 25, which means that we're going to have to get it Razor Leaf early by back to Bulbasaur. So Razor Leaf, it gets at level 20 in Gen 2. Sandshrew will also be at level 25. Voltorb will be level 25. And Eevee will be level 25. We could do Thunderbolt, Sonic Boom, Thunderwave, Explosion. Trying to decide if Sonic Boom is worth getting or not. I might be better to have Screech. I don't know. We'll just keep it. Sand Attack, Double Edge, Quick Attack, and Double Team for Eevee. That sounds diabolical. I wonder how it gets Explosion. It might be by TM. It is by TM. Okay. See where we obtain it. In yellow, the power plant only. And what level are they at the power plant? Make sure they're the right level. Yes, they are okay. There are some that are too high level. Oh crap, okay, in yellow it is too high level because they appear at level 30 and 37 in yellow version at the power plant, so they would have to trade it in. So that is our Petite Cup team done. That's 2 out of 3 done. I didn't actually use Starmie for my Pika Cup team the last time, so I could do Starmie this time. So let's see the usable Pokemon in Pika Cup. With glitches and trade backs, anything is possible. So I can use some really OP Pokemon in Pika Cup. I do recall that it's a very hard cup though. I had to make a team for round 1 even. This is where I got my team last time. Can you do a level 15 Machamp? So Machamp is eligible. This would be a pretty funny Pika Cup team. I'm making myself laugh at the idea of using Tauros only in Pika Cup after avoiding it this whole time, trading in an impossible level 15 Tauros. All of the trade evolutions on this team. Every single one. And instead of Arcanine, we'll do Ninetales. Starmie and Alakazam might be OP. So there we go, that's our Pika Cup team. Starmie, Alakazam. These are our level 20s. It's our level 15. What was the last one? Oh yeah, Nidoking. Surf, Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Blizzard. Now we're officially in too many Thunderbolts territory. Okay, anyway, I was on this guide for Alakazam's moveset, which is Reflect, Psychic, Substitute, and Thunderwave. Alright, we're gonna just steal these movesets. I don't want to think about this anymore. Karate, Chop, Low Kick, Submission, and Earthquake. Overkill. Gengar, Confuse Ray, Nightshade, Psychic, Explosion. Fire Spin, Body Slam, Dig, and Tail Whip. Tail Whip. Crazy bad move. What you got, Vulpix? You could do Flamethrower, which I think is a TM. I don't think it is. Flamethrower is off the table. Should we do Quick Attack? I feel like that's better than Tail Whip. That is our Pika Cup team. And then we will put Tauros and Mewtwo on here. So these guys are going to be level 100. Now I believe you don't need to be level 100 for Gym Leader Castle. I could be wrong, but I think it scales to your highest level Pokemon. But I always do it at level 100. So I'm going to be doing Petite Cup in round 1 with a rental team. I will be doing everything to unlock the Doduo and Dodrio Game Boys. Then I will raise Tauros and Mewtwo to level 100. Let me double check how this works, because that might be unnecessary. Yes, it's equal to your highest level Pokemon. Now what level do you catch Mewtwo at? He's 70 in yellow. So rather than 100, we will do level 70 for each of them because we actually don't need them to be at level 100 for the Gym Leader Castle. Mewtwo, Amnesia, Psychic, Substitute, and Recover. And then Tauros, Body Slam, Earthquake, Blizzard, and Thunderbolt. Let me see what levels everything is at. Catch Machop in Rock Tunnel. In yellow version, it's too high level. We will have to trade it over. But we need it to be a Machoke. Can I get a level 15 Machoke? A guide to underleveled Pokemon. You can catch a level 14 Machoke in Gold and Silver in Rock Tunnel. Okay, that's a trade-in. In Generation 1, one's level 18, too high level. So once again, this is a trade-in. In blue, it's the right level on Route 8. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Ninetales. Now, I know that you can get this at the right level. What level does Abra evolve? 16. But I think we're raising it to level 20, so that's fine. Yeah, so this one can actually just be caught in the wild in yellow version. Route 5 is the earliest. Haunter. What level can I get Haunter at? So Ghastly doesn't evolve until level 25. Can Haunter... This is a stupid question. They're all in Pokemon Tower. Let's see what the encounter levels are. 20 and 25. Ooh, these are all two. I wonder if you can get one in Sprout Tower. That would be crazy. Route 8 is in Kanto. Unfortunately, still no Cigar. 17 in Crystal. Oh my gosh, you can get a level 15 Haunter in Crystal at night in the first basement floor. And that's it. All right. And now for Staryu. You can get a level 15 Staryu. Oh, in blue only. Red and blue only, not in yellow. In yellow it's... Oh, but we want it to be level 20. That's fine. Okay, so that is Kanto Route 19. Route 19 with a... Super Rod. Okay, that's how we're getting each of these. Let me make sure that I know how each of these Pokemon learns these moves. So Exeggutor learns Sleep Powder as an Execute. Sleep Powder at level 48. Holy crap! We're not evolving this thing until level 48. And it does not learn Psychic by level up either. That is also a TM. TM 29. So Exeggutor, we catches and executes Safari Zone in Area 1. So next is Chansey. So it learns Minimize at level 38. Seismic Toss, I believe, is a TM only. Thunder Wave is a TM. I believe that this is one of those ones that's like, you only get one of them, which is annoying because everything needs Thunder Wave. And Soft Boiled. Soft Boiled a TM? It is a TM. TM 41. Okay. Now, in the Safari Zone, Chansey appears in Area 1, level 7. Whew! That is going to be hard to catch up at that point in the game, but we'll do our best. Jolteon, you get in Celadon City. It does learn Thunder Wave, thank God. Thunder Wave at level 42. So we're trading in our Vaporeon. We actually have access to Hydro Pump. It'll just make the game easier to have it be Surf. Now, suppose we catch a Dratini that doesn't know Thunder Wave. I hope we don't have to teach it via TM. I hope it already knows Thunder Wave. Now, Dratini is in Safari Zone Area 1 at level 15. We probably want to catch it at level 10 to make sure that it gets Thunder Wave though. So we probably want to do center area with a Super Rod. Okay, so far, let me figure out what level you get this Eevee in yellow version. Make sure that I'm correct, that it's usable. We don't have to trade it in. It's level 25, this Eevee, which is perfect. So this has to be via TM because it's going to be too low level to learn it by level up, and the rest of this is also TMs. I believe it doesn't learn Reflect by level up. Oh, it does, but too late. Ooh, no. Okay. Vulpix doesn't learn Quick Attack in time, and I believe it's not a TM in Gen 1, which means I have to breed it to have Quick Attack earlier. Replace Quick Attack with something else. Guess this is why it had Toxic, huh? We'll do Hypnosis. Hypnosis is an egg move in Gen 2. We're gonna trade back Ninetales with Hypnosis. So this is gonna be fully traded in. So unfortunately, it doesn't learn. Fire Spin is too late a learned move. And it's not a TM, so it also has to be an egg move. Which means that the Ninetales in this cup is cheating, because in Gen 1 this was impossible. Tricky, because Nightshade and Confuse Ray are moves it's not going to know yet when I catch it at level 15, which means I actually have to change this moveset. So I have to do it in Gen 2 to obtain one at the right level, but it doesn't know them. It won't know the moves. It will know Hypnosis, Lick, and Spite, and Mean Look, which I will have to delete. So I guess we'll change Confuse Ray to Hypnosis. It's a shame about Nightshade. I don't know what I'm gonna replace that with. Replace it with Lick. That sucks, but that's gonna have to do for messing around too much. And Mewtwo. So it will already know. Psychic doesn't learn. Oh, okay. Fine. These two will both be level 81 then. So unfortunately we need way too many TMs. So I'm either going to have to change some Pokemon or dupe TMs. I'm gonna color these so that I can easily keep track. Some of these colors don't make sense. You're just gonna have to bear with me. Okay. So that is way too many Psychic TMs. So we've got to change something. It's also too many Earthquakes. This shouldn't be colored in. This is not TM. Just learns it. But still too many Earthquakes. So we're gonna make some changes to Sandshrew learn Dig by level up. We could also do Fisher. Fisher! Is Fisher banned in Petite Cup? Let's give it Fisher. Okay, that cuts down on one TM that we had too many of, and now we need to cut down on 2 Psychic. So, well, if we're using Ghastly, nah, the levels don't match up. They have to be 2 different Pokemon. We should cut Gengar then. This is already ridiculous. We'll have to find some other Pokemon for our Pika Cup. We were already compromising so much on its moveset, so what can I use here that won't require more of the same TMs? Substitute is a purchasable TM. So let's look at Celadon Department Store. It doesn't matter that we have multiple substitutes on there because it's purchasable. Generation 1, Horn Drill, Double Team, Mega Kick, Submission, Takedown. Oh no! You only get Thunderbolt from Surge. God, that makes things so much harder. Okay, that means I can't put Raichu in to replace Gengar. We'll do Wigglytuff. Why the heck not? In yellow version, you get Jigglypuff on Route 5. So now we need to change some other stuff. I can't believe Jolteon. We might just have to replace Thunderbolt with Thunder in that case. Nidoking also gets Thunder. Voltorb is also going to get Thunder instead. This way, we have 2 Thunders and 3 Thunderbolts, so that's solved. Now we have to tackle the problem of all of these Psychics. Alakazam and Starmie, I feel like, need them. Perhaps Ghastly does not, but I think that this was the hinge on which this entire Petite Cup team was built around, so they kind of all need it. Well, this seems stupid, but maybe we need to take Alakazam off of our team then, because I think we're just gonna have to have one Psychic type. We cannot afford a second one, so goodbye Alakazam. Now back to the drawing board for fucking Pika Cup again. The low levels make this very difficult. Yeah, so 20 is our limit. We could do Dragonair at level 20. We're just gonna copy paste that Dragonair, get a 3rd Thunder in there. Now these all need a color. We will do light yellow for Thunder. There we go. Now how do I obtain a level 20 Dragonair? Yellow Fishing Super Rod. Cool. In the center area. This is a fully possible, non-glitch reliant spread of Pokemon, because this is all possible to obtain without duplicating anything. I don't know how good it's gonna be. I think that this is a pretty decent way to just figure out how many of each you have if you don't want to go to the trouble of programming in count if column for TMs for a spreadsheet to count them for you. You can just visually look at them. I made all of mine different colors, and I can see now, after doing some trial and error and changing team members and changing movesets, that I now only have 3 of each single-use TM. There are a couple TMs that you can get more than 1 of. These are the ones that are in the Celadon Casino as prizes and in the Celadon department store that you can buy. In Gen 1, unlike the later gens, these are unfortunately not like Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, mostly they're not useful, except Substitute. Thank God you can get more than 1 substitute TM because you really, really need them. This is an example of a full group of Pokemon for an English run playthrough. All of the ones that you would need, where I've figured out where to get them. Just through the course of the playthrough, I would be getting each of these TMs, and then I would also need to play through Red and Blue to get duplicate TMs. In this playthrough, I wouldn't be able to do any of the Stadium Round 2 cups until after I had finished 3 games, probably. I'm glad I went to the trouble of actually planning out a sample set of teams. I now know what resources I needed to do this, so I will link them in the guide as well. I have a copy of Yellow in my game here. I'm gonna start a new game, get my trainer name and ID number so that we can use the Blue Moon Falls Hue Previewer and put in our information to figure out how to get some of these cool colored Pokemon. Yes, that is my goal. I think I'm probably just going to aim for the most extreme colors. So my trainer ID is 02764 and my trainer name is Tama. Now, I just found this out, but you don't find out your trainer ID until you pick up Pikachu in Yellow, and then you can see it on their status screen. If you don't know what you want to name your Pikachu yet, because you want it to be a specific color in Stadium, you can save in your house, go get Pikachu, check your trainer ID that way, and then reset to before you picked up Pikachu. So our first Pokemon is Exeggutor. Let's take a look at Exeggutor in this gallery so we can decide what we want it to look like. So Exeggutor can be very green. Let's see. Palmy. Let's try Palmy. That makes it super green. That's cute. How about that? Palmy the Exeggutor. So for Chansey, Chansey kind of ranges from yellow to deep purplish pink. Let's pick out some names for Chansey. Let's try Devil the Chansey. That's super yellow. I like it. You know, like a deviled egg. Jolteon can also be kind of greenish or reddish. Let's see what Quill looks like. Quill doesn't move it much. Let's try... Spike is super green. I like that. Now, Vaporeon is tricky because it's going to be traded from my blue version. So let me take a look at what my blue version name and trainer ID is, and I'll make a note of it so that I can reference it. We'll do Vaporeon last. So I have gotten my trainer ID and name for blue version, so it's going to be Egg49320. So next is Dragonite, and we want it to be a green Dragonite too. Let's try the name Mango again, see where that gets us. Perfect. Mango the Dragonite. And now finally Dugtrio. Dugtrio can also be very yellow. Let's go for Nugget barely changes it. Let's try... This is always one of my favorite names for a Doug trio is Cleek. Also barely changes it. Buttons. Buttons works. Okay, we're going with Buttons the Doug trio. I don't know. Let me check this, what the OT is on this. Okay, so the OT is specific for this, and I don't think you can nickname it, actually. So we're skipping the nickname on Psyduck. Bulbasaur would be my OT from Crystal, so let me look up what that is. The OT for this Bulbasaur is Tamago 65434. Okay, that's the OT for that one, so we'll figure that one out later. So Sandshrew can also be red or green. Sandshrew. What's a good name for a Sandshrew? It's got like a brick pattern on it. Let's do brick. Brick makes it super green. Perfect. I'm very fortunate that most of the first try nicknames are working out for me. I usually go with the nickname scheme, which would probably make this much harder because then I would have to like think of categories of nicknames that fit with all of this. So Voltorb can be purple or very red. We're gonna try for purple because it's more extreme. Oh, but it's a trade-in, actually. So this would also be this OT. So never mind on Voltorb, Eevee, but this will also be a trade-in, but we don't have the OT for that yet. Starmie we can do. Starmie can be very purple or green. I like this purple gem. That's kind of cool. So for Starmie, Amethyst makes it kind of purpley. Prism makes it extremely purple. We're gonna go with Prism. And now Dragonair. I'm gonna go for this very light teal Dragonair. I think that's very pretty. Let's try Aqua. Aqua's not quite right. It's not far enough over. Let's try Sapphire. It's getting there. That's pretty teal. Can we make it more teal? Noodle. No change. Dream makes it dark. Magic also makes it dark. Cloud also makes it dark. Topaz. Topaz works. Does it look like Topaz? Let me double check. Blue Topaz, kind of. And now Ninetales. Are we getting Ninetales in this game, though? No, we're not. We're getting it from that game. But we are getting Wigglytuff. So let's try for a yellow with blue-eyed Wigglytuff. Let's start with the obvious. Puff changed nothing. People were really mean to me about this in the Teams video. I said merengue when I meant to say meringue. And I'm sorry, I'm an idiot, and I mixed the two up. Meringue is a French whipped egg white candy. That's what I would like to name my Wigglytuff and see if it turns yellow with blue eyes. No, not really. In fact, it turned the darker pink, so that's sad. Marshmallow. Marshy? I'm trying to think of cute names for a Wigglytuff that would be yellow with blue eyes. Cream. That kind of works. That's fairly yellow. Creme. Creme is even more yellow. Okay, adding the Y makes it bad. We're naming it Creme. And now Nidoking. We want it to be this color, the blue with green ears, like it's shiny. That would be cool. Tyrant. Tyrant barely changes it. Majesty. King. That's pretty purple. Royal is extremely blue and green. We're going with Royal. Okay, we're gonna go for this green Tauros like it's shiny. Bullseye. The Tauros named Bullseye. That doesn't change a thing. That's a little bit shifty. I think the shorter names will get better yield, so how about... Spear is very green. I like it. And finally, Mewtwo. We can get this grayish blue Mewtwo. That's kind of cool. Let's try Mono. Mono barely changes the color. Dolly. Dolly is fully the wrong direction. Still a cool color, though. Tuxedo. Closer. Ooh, better. Metal. Midnight. Ooh, better. That's kind of a dark Mewtwo. It can get darker, though. That is really cool, though. Midnight the Mewtwo. Midnight the dark Mewtwo. Omen. Thinking of edgy names now. Edgy. Shadow. No. Darkness. Midnight was still the best so far. Block Bus. I think the longer names get me the darker hues. What's a good Mewtwo name? Makes me think of, like, food coloring. When you first drop it in and how saturated it looks. Makes me think of Velvet. Makes you think of Contrast, Keanu, Mecha, Giovanni, Anti-Hero. No, it's not better. Godzilla, Kaiju. Let me Google some adjectives or something. Most powerful blackstone, tourmaline. Let's try that word. That's pretty dark. I think that's as dark as we've gotten so far. Obsidian, moonstone. Let's try moonstone. Jet's pretty dark. I want that bar all the way over. Let's try obsidian. No, barely different. Darth Vader. Why does that put it all the other way? It doesn't make any sense. Graphite is fairly dark. Not the darkest we've had yet, but God, this is just never gonna happen for me, is it? This is as dark as I've gotten so far. I want it to go all the way. Okay, this is as far as we're gonna go. I have decided on the name Monochrome the Mewtwo. Now I'm going to put in this trainer ID and name, and we will figure out our Vaporeon. I like this one, this purple one with green ears. Let's go for that one. That's pretty good already. So we're gonna name this one Blueberry, the Vaporeon. And now we're gonna use this to figure out Ninetales and Bulbasaur. So let's do Bulbasaur first. And I would really like this extremely cool looking blue Bulbasaur. Radish. No. That looks like a shiny Bulbasaur, the name Radish. Let's go for Poison's pretty good. Just naming it blue makes it extremely blue. So how about Blue the Bulbasaur? And now for Ninetales. We're gonna go for a very green one, I think. King, that's pretty yellow, but we can go greener than that. It's a good name for a Ninetales. Digits the Ninetales. You know what? I like that. The very yellow Ninetales named Digits. And Machamp is also going to come from the save file. So Machamp. I want to get this blue one with a green belt. We're going to try Money in the Bank. No, wrong way. The title. Undisputed. Defending. Defending. Makes it the right color. Defender doesn't work. It has to be ing. Defending. Is that even a name? Let's try. Whoa, that's very purple worldwide. Gunther. Crossroads. Crossroads. Well, defending is the color I want. It's just a weird name for a Machamp. Defending. I feel like I can do better than that. Bicep. Bench press. There, perfect. Reps the Machamp. He's green and he's blue. I like that better. Rep. I didn't find Voltorb while I was using this TID, so we'll go back. I think we want it to be purple. That's pretty good. How much different is it? Gumdrop. That's pretty good. That's the darkest we've gotten so far. This is making me want candy. The name Rainbow is as far as we get. How about Rainbow the Voltorb? That's cute. Alright, so Psyduck doesn't get a nickname. Ghastly. I think I just accidentally skipped Ghastly. So now we need to go back. Damn it. I didn't write down what my trainer ID was. We're gonna give it a yellow mouth. We're gonna name it Egg Roll. That's kind of almost yellow. Egg makes it blue. This is a misrepresentation of Ghastly. According to this, it says Pokemon with translucent textures such as the fire on Moltres' head and the gas surrounding Ghastly don't actually hue shift in the game as they are handled separately from the rest of the Pokemon's textures. This was not reflected in the tool and may be changed at a later date. So although this blue looks cool, that is not what it will actually look like in the game. I'm gonna name it Lemon. Lemon the Ghastly with a yellow mouth. Okay, that's nicknames for everything that can have a nickname, except for this Eevee. So the Eevee I'm not gonna get right now because I need to change the battery in my red version. This is all of my aesthetic team. I wish I had taken screenshots of all of them. Perhaps I will do that in a moment and kind of like make a little document to show you what my teams will look like. Now, I think actually, I said you needed 2 teams for Japanese Blue, but you could probably do the same 6 Pokemon at 2 different levels. 30 is a bit tough because there are some Pokemon that you cannot get at level 30. Like for example, if I wanted to use an Articuno, like some of the trainers use, I can't use an Articuno in level 30. You just, not possible. So I would need to come up with something else to put in that spot at that time. We're gonna take Toru's team and do that one for level 50. I don't want to come up with another set of Gen 1 Pokemon because it's 8:30 on a Friday and I'm tired. 2, there's no overlap with the current team that I just put together. So it's completely different, except for Tauros, but you just can't get around raising a Tauros, I guess. So in blue version in particular, and Lickitung are available in the wild, and Tauros is now only available in an in-game trade. It's in the Seafoam Islands. Double Team, Lovely Kiss, Psychic, and Blizzard. So there's an in-game trade for Tauros in Japanese blue, but I think I would be trading from Japanese green so that I can get some of these TMs from the other game than in the English games, and then that way
why I can also give it a nickname. Now, I believe you can get this in the same spot in Japanese Blue, which is Route 19, Super Rod, Articuno, Ice Beam, Double Team, Blizzard, and Toxic. Man, everything has Blizzard, huh?
This is my blue version team, my Japanese blue version team. I went ahead and found this last night. The same rules would apply, I think, to the blue version playthrough. I need 3 Blizzards, and I had to look up how everything learns all this stuff. Recover. It learns as a Staryu at level 27 and minimize at level 37. So I will add a note. Do not evolve until 37. So this is too many Blizzard TMs, I think. Yeah, this is 4 Blizzard TMs. So I'm gonna change what Tauros learns. We're gonna switch that to Ice Beam. So here's the deal. If I wanted to do this without duping items, I would have to play through both green and red to get the rest of these TMs. Keep that in mind. I am applying the same 3 TM each rule here, assuming that I'm going to be doing additional playthroughs. And I wanted to check if Hyper Beam is a purchasable TM. I think it is. You can buy Double Team. You can buy Horn Drill, Mega Kick, Submission Takedown, no Hyper Beam. Where do you get Hyper Beam? TM 15. It's at the Rocket Game corner. Oh, you can buy it with coins. Okay, well that's good. So Blizzard is really the big problem I have here, but it is what it is. Now, this is my level 50 team. I can use some of these same Pokemon for level 30. For example, what level can you catch Jinx at? Let's check. Bulbapedia, why? Help me out here. It doesn't say what level you can catch Jinx at. What if you want to play Japanese Blue? Okay, here we go. These are in-game trades, wild encounters. Jinx. Thank you! Okay, Jinx can only be caught. I love Smogon. This is so useful. Okay, Jinx can only be caught in Seafoam Islands in blue version at level 37, which means it is not eligible for the level 30 cups unless I get it from like an endgame trade in a different version other than blue. Oh, we're gonna have to trade Tauros in anyway. So Tauros is a trade. There's an in-game trade for the Tauros in this game. So Tauros can be at any level. I believe Starmie can be at any level. Articuno cannot be in level 30. I believe you can get a level 30 Electrode. But oh, I wanted to use Pikachu, so scratch that. Can you get Kangaskhan at level 30 in blue version? Yes, you can. Okay, so we're gonna change up this team. So Jinx is out. Tauros, same moveset probably. Can't have Earthquake this early, I think. Unless I trade it in from a different game. Let's take a look at what they know in the level 30 tournament. What they use. Tail Whip. They literally use Tail Whip on Tauros. Can you delete moves in Gen 1? I don't know if you can. There's no move deleter. Okay, so this is important for you guys. For planning reasons, you cannot remove HM moves once you teach them in Gen 1, unless you transfer them to Gen 2 and do it there, which I will not have access to. It's probably not the best thing it could learn, but I don't know what to replace Earthquake with. So Starmie doesn't get Recover, it doesn't get Minimize until 37, so it will have Recover. So Starmie, I don't know if I'm gonna have Surf at that point. We might, and then to replace Minimize, we will want... Oh, they got Takedown on Starmie. That seems weird. But Starmie doesn't learn a lot of stuff, so it has to be a TM. Maybe we'll do... Would it be insane to put Substitute in here? Because you can get more than one Substitute. I'm seeing nobody using Substitute, really. Pikachu. Thunderbolt on Pikachu. They have Rage, Growl, and Swift. We're gonna not do that. Okay, explain this to me. I'm curious about this. So this says, oh, it's a Korokoro magazine event Pikachu. There's a flying Pikachu from Gen 1. I didn't know that. It sounds like it's a Japanese only, but that's really interesting. So I could inject the flying Pikachu and then teach it Surf. Would that be crazy? If I'm going to the trouble of playing Gen 1 again anyway, inject flying Pikachu. That would be so stupid, but I would love that. If I could use the flying Pikachu and then teach it Surf in this game. I should look into this flying Pikachu. Let's look that up. Event Pokemon. Why am I stupid today? I can't find anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they have it. I've been looking for like 20 minutes and I can't find it. So I'm gonna actually take that off of my list because I don't think that that's an available Pokemon that people have. I guess they use it like legally in Smogon, but I don't have access to it. I got excited there. But let's just come up with a decent Pikachu moveset and move on. No, We're not doing trade backs because I haven't played through Gen 2 in Japanese, so I don't have access to that. It would be really funny to do like double team Toxic. I don't know if I'm gonna have Toxic, but we'll try. And then it will learn Surf, so we'll put Swift in this moveset. Now I need to replace Articuno, we'll do Lapras. The Lapras in these sucks. I don't know why these movesets are so bad. I believe you get it quite low level, so using it at level 30 shouldn't be a problem. Or do you get the TM Blizzard in this game? It's in the Pokemon Mansion. I won't have it by then, probably, but I'm already gonna have used my Ice Beam TM. It doesn't learn it naturally until level 38, so I'm guessing we're just not gonna have it, so we'll do Surf, Confuse Ray. No, it's level 31. Body Slam. What does Mist do? Gen 1. I feel like that's just not a good move. This one uses Solar Beam. We could do Mist and Solar Beam. Now, where do you get the TM for Solar Beam? Also, Pokemon Mansion. Cool. What about Dragon Rage? You can get that at the Rocket Game Corner. I don't know what Dragon Rage would do at level 30. Probably not that much, but TM 23. If Lapras can learn Hyper Beam, we're just gonna put Hyper Beam on everything. We're gonna be Lance. Where do you get the Rock Slide TM? Celadon Department Store. So we should already have that. We won't have Blizzard or Earthquake though. So what are these guys using on Kangaskhan? Do I dare ask? Mega Punch and Mega Kick. I think we'll have those. That sounds ridiculous though. Having Hyper Beam and Mega Punch and Mega Kick. Mega Punch is TM1, TM5. And now we need to replace Jinx. We'll do Alakazam. We're trading it in anyway. Alakazam. What is our Pika Cup Alakazam team? Oh, we deleted it. I just remembered. Okay, we'll look at the guide again. Reflect, Psychic, Substitute, and Thunderwave. I believe it's caught on Route 24. We're not using any TMs more than 3 times. We've accounted for the moves and Pokemon that will be available at level 30, and I have no idea if this is a good team or not. I'm pretty much just ripping off what I saw already in the game, and we would have to see how they perform. I imagine it's a very difficult game, and I will have to play through all 3 Japanese versions for these. In the Japan-only Pokemon Stadium, the Doduo Game Boy Tower is unlocked by clearing either the level 1 through 30 division tournament or the level 50 to 55 division tournament. Likewise, the Dodrio Game Boy Tower is unlocked by clearing both cups. I won't have that prior to starting the level 30, so it's going to be just tediously playing through it to get the TMs I need, at least up to this point. I think Psychic is the main thing that I'll need more than one of for this that isn't purchasable at either the Game Corner or in Celadon City. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other terrible overlap, so that's good, I guess. And then the same Pokemon will be usable again at level 55. So there we go. We have now routed both of these playthroughs for a hypothetical glitchless run that involves playing 6 games. If I was going to do glitched, I could obviously only play 2 games. If I was going to play glitched as well, I would have more freedom in making each of these teams because I was very careful about limiting my TM usage, and as a result, I changed some of my Pokemon around. You could probably find hue shift and nicknames for your Japanese team. I'm not gonna do that. I don't really know if the Blue Moon Falls calculator accounts for Japanese characters, but I feel like this is a helpful demonstration. Feel free to use this, and if you do, let me know how it goes. I don't know how great these teams are, since I modified all of them quite a bit to not reuse Pokemon that I've already used in Gen 1, which left me with some not as good Pokemon to pick from. So yeah, that I think is the most complete Gen 1 playthrough that I could come up with. If you can think of anything that I missed, and it's possible that I missed something, please leave it in the comments for other people to incorporate into their playthroughs, so I can always update that document with anything that gets suggested in the comments, and I will also update it with all the little changes that I made as I was going through it and explaining it to you. I had no interest in playing Gen 1 again, ever, until I made this list, and I realized how many of these things that I had never done. I do enjoy Gen 1, and I think that it would be fun to try and play it some of these different ways. I think that it stands the test of time. I know that it's hard for younger people to go back to, just because it doesn't look and feel necessarily like a modern Pokemon game, but it's as classic gets, and it's kind of fun to think about Game Freak's original vision for the series before they made all their iterative changes over the years. There's a lot in here that just never made a comeback, or got changed quite a bit. I think it's interesting to experience the original incarnation. So someone take this game away from me before I do another 100% run of it. So next time, I will walk you through my checklist for Gen 2. In a very similar fashion, I will eventually make one for Gen 3 as well. Tell me all about your Gen 1 runs if you decide to do it using this guide, because that would be cool. I will pin a comment with the guide wherever it ends up, and I will keep updating it. So go play Gen 1 and then tell me about it. Okay. Today's show and tell item, while I ask you all to subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications, is what happens when you get a Pokemon Pikachu up to 1 million steps. Now, I was under the impression that when you reach 1 million steps, an event happens. According to Cerebi, at 1 million steps, there's a special animation of Pikachu writing you a thank you letter and leaving. The reason for this is that the pedometer can only count up to 1 million, and essentially, to keep using it, you would need to reset the game and start over. But I suspect this special animation was only in the Japanese Pocket Pikachu, because upon reaching 1 million steps, all mine now does is display that I hit 1 million steps and how much time it took me to do so. How disappointing! But at least now I can say that I've done it.